Welcome officially to this morning's session of the 7-Day Business Fuel Challenge. I am your host, Rebecca Newman, the founder and CEO of the Grow Project, a business training and coaching program specifically for women who want to grow businesses and babies at the same time. Today, I feel very fortunate to be interviewing Tim Dwyer, a global partner of SureLaws, a mentor of the KPI program, also a mentor for the Grow Project, and an all-round rock star, especially when it comes to product and revenue. And I think considering we're talking about fuel and what fuels people's businesses and what fuels people's lives, product and revenue could be seen as the lifeblood of a business, and certainly what some would refer to as oxygen in the business. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, you work with all different people through SureLaws on their journey of growing, funding and exiting businesses. Can you tell me a bit about who you're working with?
Well, fortunately, I get to work with a full spectrum of clients. So I work with, through the KPI program, I work with a lot of what I call Persona A clients, which are the clients that go from pretty much 80,000 all the way through to about 1 to 1.5 mil. Then I work with a whole lot of other clients to help them go through the next phase, which I call Persona B, which is the 1.5, taking them through to the 12 mil. And then we're fortunate to work with quite a number of bigger companies, which we call the captains of industry, or Persona C, we call them. And that's taking businesses from 12 mil through to 24 mil through to 120 mil. At which point we then hand them off to our global team to then work with them to take them from the hundreds of millions into the billions. So so it's a very, very broad spectrum, and it does take a very different approach for each persona for what we do and what they need to work on. Okay.
So you're very specific around those numbers, and I know from working with SureLaws that numbers is one of the most amazing things that sits behind everything that you guys do, at that amazing intersection of understanding culture in a business and numbers. So perhaps if you could tell me a bit more about SureLaws and what you do with each of those, not specifically what you do with the personas, but what you do in business.
Yeah, okay. So we're basically here to help businesses grow, fund and exit. So it's about the life journey of an organization. So to grow an organization, it's really important for the leadership of that organization to have complete confidence in themselves. When the leadership have confidence in themselves, then they then give confidence within their organization. If the leadership don't have confidence and they've got self-doubt, then what happens is the organization then starts doubting, the people within the organization start doubting the organization. So what we do, it doesn't matter which market we work in. If a business wants to grow, what we do is we have the tools, the mathematics, we have all the frameworks to give that confidence to the business owner. Now, when the business owner has the confidence that their decisions are the right decisions, their decisions are the ones that are going to progress their business forward, then the organization will go with them. If doubt, as I said before, if doubt creeps in, then businesses can stagnate. Now, big businesses do need to grow, and then they need to plateau, then they need to grow again, then they need to build more infrastructure, then they need to grow again. So there's natural places where an organization will actually stall anyway. So if the person leading the organization knows why that happens and that it's natural, then doubt won't creep into them. So again, they'll get the confidence to rebuild infrastructure that they need to go to the next level. So the first and foremost thing is what we do is we give confidence to the business owner and the business leadership to be able to grow their business with full awareness of how to do it. The second thing we need to do is we give them the courage to invest. So in organizations, you've got to either invest money of your own, you've got to reinvest profits, or you've got to go get capital from external sources. So if the owners are confident with where they're going, and we can show them what the outcome is from the investment, it gives them the courage to invest in their organization. And the most important thing is we give them the freedom to choose when they exit. So exit is all about choice, and exit is all about timing. We see a lot of businesses exit at the wrong time because they feel like they have to exit. So if we can help a business grow on one hand through confidence, we can give them the courage to invest, and then we can show them when is the best time to get out, when is the best time to actually pass on the asset to someone to take it to the next level.
Now, I also should have mentioned at the start that you and I have worked together in lots of different ways. I have been your client, and I am also your partner, and in terms of delivering the Grow project. And you and I have also presented on stage recently, and have a few more other sessions in the future. So one thing, though, when I sit and hear you speak about what you've mentioned, is actually it sounds incredibly predictable. So perhaps you could let other people in on the secret, because most people would say actually that business is not predictable. So how is it that SureLaws has a view that business is actually predictable in private enterprise?
Well, the premise of it is it's predictable because businesses grow in cycles. And when you know what the cycle looks like and you know what drives the cycle, then you can actually predict what's actually going to happen in the likely scenarios. So there's always uncontrollables that can hit. So there's always bits that aren't predictable. But because we know that there's a percentage of things that aren't predictable, you can even plan for those. So the thing around it is business is founded on mathematics, number one. But most importantly, it's founded on people. And it's people that, and it's their behaviors that then generate an outcome. So we can see what behaviors are going on inside an organization, what capability sits inside an organization, and what mathematics sits inside the organization to work out what is likely going to happen in the future. Now, the thing around that is we've worked with over 8,000 clients globally now, and we do map this, and we do learn from this experience. We've been mapping against the frameworks for over 15 years now. And it's proven time and time again that the cycles are predictable. A business goes through startup, where there's frantic that sits inside the business. It goes through an investment brick wall, where confidence is built. It goes through good times, where returns are taken out of the business and put into reinvested, as well as put into personal agendas. Businesses go through payback, where they go through a euphoric period because the outcomes are absolutely fantastic. When businesses grow beyond their capability, the businesses will then go into frustration and stress and into the second brick wall, because they've now got a capability gap, because the business is now growing past where they're able to take it. So they need to work on how to actually close the capability gap before the business then transforms into its next phase, so to speak, where it'll go into what we call an advanced growth business. So we can plot where a business is going, we can find out where a business wants to be, and we can put in programs and put in recommendations of what they need to do to get from A to B. And because we've done it with so many clients now, because the frameworks are so simple, clients take it on, they learn from it, they apply it, and they get their outcomes.
And I know that is articulated. You guys call it stages.
Yep.
And it's articulated beautifully in the what is known by all your clients, at least, as the Pear and Ginger video, where they and me as a client as well are able to see something different every time I watch that. So for those who haven't seen it, jump onto YouTube or jump onto the SureLawsGroup.com page, and you'll see it on the front page there. It's called The Journey. If you Google SureLaws and The Journey, it will come up, and it's a short 3-minute video, and it's amazing. And I think part of working with SureLaws, and part of it being so simple and yet so clever, part of it is actually that moment where you actually feel like somebody else is reading your mind, which is a bit scary. And then when you get used to that, it's actually really comforting, because actually the mathematics sits there and the culture sits there, and you talk a lot about the cycles. Lindsay did give us a bit of a discussion on her session the other night when we were talking about the fuel source of brand in a business, to talk about top down versus bottom up. We didn't really get into the cycles, and you've mentioned cycles a couple of times. So can you talk to us a bit about cycles, and then perhaps put the mathematical overlay on?
Yeah, sure. So businesses go through predictable cycles, and you can tell it. It's based on the number of people that sit inside an organisation. And if we just take, for instance, that you take $100,000 per person generated, so it's a revenue number. So what businesses do is they go through different cycles. So cycle one, or phase one of a cycle, is from 80,000 to 750,000. And at each end of the cycle is what we call a black hole. Now, when companies go through a black hole, they need new infrastructure. So the first one, 80,000 people go through that, and they realize they've got to put on their first employee. So they go from a sole trader to now a company, because they've got an employee or they've got contractors working for them. They'll then go through that phase all the way up to about 600,000 before going into the next phase at 750K. Now, what happens is businesses will put on 2, 3, 4 people, and at 4 people, they'll be doing okay because the management of those 4 people is relatively simple. Once a business goes past 4 people, it gets a little bit more complicated, and that's why they start to sail into the 750K black hole. Now, I'll hear so many people give me feedback that they say they're at 7 people, they're working twice as hard, and they're taking home less money. So when people feel like that, sometimes they'll then strip out the resource again and go back to 4 people, which is what so many organizations do. As a result of that, then they stay there, and then they grow again, and they grow to 7 people, and they repeat the pattern. That's why it's called a black hole. People don't push through it. So what happens there is businesses need to work out how they can then do the next layer of infrastructure, which is they need to go to 12 people. And that infrastructure requires management capability. And this is where a lot of businesses will go into what we call the second brick wall, because quite often if someone's coming and starting a business and they haven't had experience in management or managing small groups of people or teams of people, they can run into a little bit of trouble, which is why they tend to fall back to the fore again. But if they push through this phase and learn how to do the management, what happens then is they then go through the next phase of growth, which is the 1.5 mil through to the 12 mil. Now, each of these phases have predictable things of what you need to do. So you would have talked through with Lindsay with the brand led, and down the other end is sales. So you go sales, you've got to build sales processes, you have to build channel processes, you then need to build productization processes, and then brand processes. With Lindsay, what she recommends is you do top down, which is you do brand, product, channel, sales, which I agree 100% with, because it just speeds the whole journey up and you just create it all in one go. Now, through the 1.5 mil through to the 12 mil, that's where you have to build process. At 12 mil, then businesses need to create a really big jump to 24 mil, and that's when they become serious organizations. And you're talking of taking a business from here, which is about 120 people, through to 240 people in general. So it's a much different beast again, and you've got to recruit completely different capability. The infrastructure needs to be completely different. And as a result, organizations do stumble at the next layer. So what we have here is different cycles, you have different phases, but the most important thing is the sales, channels, product, brand all repeat themselves in each phase.
And beyond that, you've mentioned that it's up now to 24 million, and you've mentioned the black holes at 750, the next one around that 17 million mark, and then what happens after that? After these numbers go?
You're going a bit gobbly. I think that something's wrong with the internet. But can you hear me okay? You can still hearing me? Yep. So after the 17 mil, you go through to the 170 mil. And that's where a business goes from another big jump. It goes from capability into what we call the strategic phase, which there's actually very few organisations in Australia that actually get to that space just based on our market size. So they're very special indeed, the ones that go through to the hundreds of millions.
So I'd like to bring up something you talked about, because I think when we're chatting with people about all these different principles, and we're chatting about the different cycles. Okay, someone says they can't hear me either.
You're going a bit garbled there, Rebecca.
Okay. All right.
If people can hear me, just ask me the next simple question and I'll do my best.
Can you talk about yo-yo by knowing, by jumping in concept and implementation and strategy, so the yo-yo effect?
Yeah. Okay. So, so for what I think I heard there is people go through a yo-yo effect because they don't build capability. They jump from concept into implementation. And that's a common thing that happens inside any business, whether it be a big business or a small business. A lot of people miss the layers that you have to create in order to build the depth of capability. One of the things I talk about when I talk about with KPI is capability is a journey, and when capabilities lacking in an organization, what can happen is it hurts not only the infrastructure but can also hurt the culture of an organization. So building capability is paramount to not building a fear-based culture inside an organization. So the way that an organization does that, there's 5 layers of building capability. The first layer is the concept layer. So people get an understanding. Am I still on? Oh, call is enabled. Oh, I'll keep going because I think everyone else can still hear me. Can everyone still hear me? If you can just send me a note. Lauren Irvine 6. Could you just send me a note if you can still hear me? Ah, great. Okay, so I'll keep going. Thank you, Lauren. I'll keep going and Beck will join in again shortly. So what has to happen is there's 5 layers. So if you look at the layers, firstly, there's a concept layer, which is businesses know why they need to do something. The next layer is the strategy layer, which means they know what to do. The next layer is the implementation layer, which means they know how to do it. Then the next layer down again is the mentor layer, which is layer 4, which means they know how to teach it. And the next layer down again is the leverage layer, which is they know how to leverage it. Now, depending on which phase you're in, will depend on how deep you need to go. So an example is if you're in the phase of 80,000 to 1.5 mil, you're in a phase of doing. So you're doing everything. So you need to build strategies around sales, channels, around brand, but you're still doing everything. So what you do is you just keep it very simple. You get the concept, you document the concept in the simplest form, you build a very simple strategy paper, which might be a couple of pages. It's not too detailed, but it's enough that you've put the thought into it, and then you go and implement. Now, when you do that for the various things that you need to do in business, and there's 9 key ones, out of the revenue, there's the 4 which we're talking about. So you need to document what you're going to be doing on each of those. Now, when you get into the habit of just doing simple documentation, it means that your implementation, you can check your implementation and you can check your strategy on whether it's the right strategy or you need to change the strategy. But the most important thing is business owners do get the concept of what sales is all about, get the strategy of what sales is all about, and then implement what you need to implement. Now, so if I just use sales as an example of a concept, a lot of people push away from sales. And so what I see sales is it's just a pure way of creating a relationship. So if you put the concept of sales as creating relationships in the commercial space, then you go, what's my strategy for creating relationships? What processes, what tools do I use? And then lastly, how am I going to go about implementing that? So the thing around, again, it's very much get the concept right. If you need help with the concept, you do the research around it, and then you just go and implement it. Now, when you then move from a doing phase into a process phase, that is when you've got to then start doing the mentoring phase. So you've got to go down to layer 4 and layer 5. So now you've got to take those processes that you're doing in the doing phase, and you now got to put some complexity to them, because you now need to pass them on to multiple people doing the sales. Now, when there's multiple people doing the sales, then you just need depth of capability there. And it's the same, multiple people doing brand, multiple people doing products, multiple people doing channels. And that's what we mean by building capability. It's a journey. So question for me, what's the biggest problem people face in growing their business? Okay, so the biggest problem is people. The biggest advantage is people. So everything comes back to people. Everything comes back to energy of the individual and the collective energy of an organization. So when we can acknowledge what's actually going on in an organization and we can acknowledge what's going on inside of people, we can then grow the business effectively. What happens is, though, the biggest risk inside of business is that if people are promoted or people move past their capability and then they don't backfill to learn what it is they need to do their role, and they don't move on, what happens is distractions are created inside organizations. So the biggest blocker to growth inside an organization is capability. If capability is not built, and people inside the business sit in fear now that they can't do what is expected of them, then they will look for other things to distract, take their mind off the fact that they can't do something that they need to do. Beck, you back?
I think so. I can hear you talking about the problems people have in business, and I'm just having fun with blub today.
Well, hopefully everyone was still able to hear me, because I went on a bit of a rant.
Well, hopefully you explain yo-yos, and if you're talking about problems that people face in growing that business, I think in terms of what fuels them up and an understanding of what can fuel them, then that's really valuable, because otherwise they can just feel completely zapped. And we talk about energy credits and we talk about energy zappers. So yeah. The fact we're talking about the problems, I think, really helps.
Yeah, so just around the yo-yos, I didn't actually relate the capability back to the yo-yo, but let me just back end that. What happens in business is we get excited by a concept. So we come up with an idea and we go, oh my God, that's the answer. And what a lot of people then do is they go straight from, oh my God, that's the answer, straight into implementation. They miss the strategy layer. And we get energized by the fact that we've come up with a new idea, we go and implement it. If people miss the strategy layer and actually really thinking it through, what happens is the implementation doesn't give them the outcome that they thought was going to happen. And so then they go, oh, that mustn't have been it. And then they come up with the next big brainy idea. And so what they do is they jump up and down. That's the yo-yo, as you say, the yo-yo effect. If people just slow down a bit and go, okay, what is this? What's this concept all about? What am I wanting to achieve with it? Spend some time writing some notes on it and then working out an implementation plan. They'll then start to see the correlation. And it actually takes some of the energy away to start off with, but then through implementation, the energy then builds back up again and they go, oh, wow, that actually did work.
Absolutely. And I think I won't jump into a conversation on the Compass platform, Tim, and the ELM, which is the indicator which looks at are you more inclined in the entrepreneurial, the leadership, or the manager space? Are you more an entrepreneur, leader, or a manager? But I think that can be really interesting too in how your natural space is, and it can provide a lot of insight there around why someone like me might find bright, shiny objects, and why someone like me can also find shiny objects in your business, and help to find those things that we can help bring out. But just those natural tendencies, I think, that and again, so there's a Compass platform that SureLaws has, which is a series of indicators which look at a few different things, but entrepreneur, leader, manager, ELM is one of them.
The big thing around that, Beck, is in business there's a whole lot of judgment of difference. So when people can see that it's actually they've got a natural way that they work, and others have a natural way that they work, we can then combine those and actually work better as a team. It's also the key thing is to take away the judgment of difference. They're indicators designed just to give awareness, so that therefore we can be less judgmental of self, which means we'll be less judgmental of others.
So let's talk about the problems and perhaps talk about one key problem that each of the personas face from a revenue point of view. And whether you want to tackle it as revenue or whether you want to talk about it as product, I'm agnostic as to how you want to pick the examples. But say in that first phase, that 0 to or 80 to $1 million mark, what's the key problem people are facing in their business?
Time.
Okay.
So the first thing is they're doing everything. As I said, it's the ing phase. And because they're wanting and having to do everything, and they lack the time to actually sit down and slow it down a bit. So time is the biggest issue and the biggest hurt at that point of view. Also, because of the time factor, sometimes they don't do the recruitment the way that they need to do recruitment and bring on resources. And when they don't recruit properly, they don't induct properly, they don't get a return on investment from their recruits and the people they bring on to help them. And so therefore growth can slow because they just rush because they don't have time. The thing around it is if you look at time, there's plenty of time. And what we do is we break time into colour. So there's a framework that we use called red, blue, black. And what we do is we show businesses that how you can actually schedule your year out so that you can see that there's so much time that you can actually create quite a lot of leisure time as well as time for building the business. It's just working a bit smarter on it and using your time more effectively. There are so many things that businesses do to waste time. And one of the things that we've done is we've created the formula so that people don't have to think about what it is they need to do at each phase. What they can do is concentrate on what they need to do rather than worrying about what they need to do. So that's the first thing in that first bracket. In the second bracket, from the 1.5 mil through to the 12 mil, generally businesses will have more time at this point in the process. But what they need to do is they need to spend their money more wisely because the investment phase to go from 1.5 mil through to 12 mil is more significant. There's more at stake for each decision. So they need to have much better money management through the 1.5 to 12 mil and do the right business cases before they invest. If they do that, then the investments they make will actually get the uptick that they need to go from 1.5, 3, 6, and then 12. So again, that is what processes do they need to invest in? What systems do they need to invest in to take them to the next layer? To go from Can
I just pause you, and then we'll jump to the next layer. So the bulk of the clients that I work with are in that bracket, and they are different challenges to those in the up to 750K black hole. And what I want to chat about is what happens when you don't invest. Say you've had rapid growth or, for example, and you've jumped a cycle.
Yeah, so if you've jumped a cycle, what happens if you haven't invested in a piece of infrastructure that you need to have? You slide backwards. So I see a lot of businesses, what they do is they hit a sweet spot in the marketplace and they grow really quickly and they grab as much of that revenue as they possibly can. But if they don't invest in either the sales process or the channel process or the product process, depending on what they didn't invest in, they will slide back to that part. So you might see some really quick growth. But again, if you don't backfill that growth with the proper infrastructure, the growth is not sustainable and the business goes backward for a period of time. Then they work out what they've got to work on, what infrastructure they're going to put in, and then they go into the growth cycle again. And
I can tell you personally, our experiences of that is we feel like we stop wasting money. So for Newmark Constructions, that was one of our biggest pieces, was to just see that slippage and see where we were investing. And I think also knowing the journey and knowing which parts to focus on at which points in time, we were able to see that some of the stuff we were investing in, we weren't getting immediate return on investment, but that was part of our top-down strategy. So we were actually building for the bigger side of things, so we weren't getting the return straight away. So we were actually able to think about how we were investing our money and have a lot more confidence, which actually gave us the ability to grow a lot faster as we have done working with yourself. So thank you. I just think the slippage piece is really interesting, and even if you haven't experienced the slippage, however you've actually not built the system out, the slippage eventually comes, is our experience, and certainly my experience in working with clients is that sounds like what you're working with others as well.
Yeah, we did the same mistake as well, Rebecca. So in our organisation, the step that we missed was the product step. And we realised this a few years ago that we missed that step. And so since we've backfilled it, it means all the investments that we've made now in sales and channels and brand will all be realised because we've filled the gap that we actually missed ourselves. So now that we've got that, we can see that the revenue uptick happening. So that everything else falls into place with that.
Excellent.
So the thing is, you might have invested in something, as you said, but you haven't got the return on it just because you're just missing one of the other pieces.
I do want to come to product, but let's just finish off this discussion about the biggest challenge that people face once they've hit that $12 million brand point. They've gone into the black hole of the $17 million and they're starting to come out that other side of the 24 million. What's the next biggest challenge they face?
Well, the 17 million is it's a really tricky black hole because that's where businesses need a different financial management. They need a CFO at this point because what happens is they need another layer of management. They need a professional layer of management. And for business owners, that's a very scary time because it means a relinquishment of control. Again, businesses need to do that to be able to grow. And in order to do that, they've got to make sure that they recruit again. They've got to recruit the right capability. So it's a critical element to acquire the best talent at this point in time. When businesses do acquire the best talent at this point in time, though, they do grow very, very quickly from this point because they've now got some momentum. So if they get the right capability coming into the business from a top line management, and top line sales, top line channels, top line productization people, top line brand, they grow extremely quickly through this phase, and they're the ones that you see showing up from nowhere. They're the overnight successes, but they haven't been an overnight success. The biggest blockage people have going through this is letting go of the past. So they go from a process phase into a capability phase, and sometimes that means they've got to let go of people as well. And it is such a big emotional detachment businesses have to go through to transform into what we call a professional organisation to take it through to what that organisation can actually and potentially, or to realise its potential, so to speak.
So let go is a really interesting thing. When I did my when I was doing all the mapping out for the Grow Project side of things, working with yourself and also with Adam, and looking at the capacity and mapping it all out. And Adam beautifully put in the points: let go here, let go here, let go here. And I think it's a really interesting concept, and it's something that's really helped me as a concept, as a business owner, to actually think about what I need to let go of. It's been and how quickly my growth can be accelerated. And you and I had an experience up in Brisbane a little while ago where I had to let go of a whole heap of baggage, and the result was an absolute massive piece of personal growth and a big piece of business growth as well. So maybe if you could pop in before we jump onto product and product architecture, just a bit of information about letting go and how that affects growth and takes fuel out of the tank.
Yeah, so we've all got attachment. So if it's our business, it's our baby, and we've got attachment to that. And so the most important thing is we build capability to be able to transfer our skills and experiences to someone else and then let them go and do it. As I talked about before around the 5 layers, there's concept, strategy, implementation, and then next phase. It's the next phase where you become the mentor inside your business, and you've got to let people make mistakes. Or what I call skin their knees, not break their neck. And that you've got to watch them, develop them, and then watch them flourish. The letting go bit is the bit that actually creates a very proud feeling when you can actually let go and see others working in your organisation and doing things better than you could have done them, because that's their specialty, that's their rock star skill, as you call it. That's a fantastic thing to watch, but it is a process. And because it is our baby, we want to hold on to it. It's like with kids, you want to make sure that protect them and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes you've just got to let things go and move on to your next role as well. And that's a key thing as well, is because sometimes we reach our first vision. In order to let go, we've got to create the next bigger vision for ourselves. and move on to that, so that therefore it creates the space for other people to come in behind us.
And that's a really interesting piece in ourselves. I remember the first time we sat down and did some serious strategic planning around the Newmark side of things with our first kind of advisor in the business. And we did one of those, what's your big, hairy, audacious goals for 5 years? And it was a very simplistic process. So it was like, okay, what would all these different parts of your life? I think you and I giggled later because it was the Wheel of Life exercise. And then we've since redone it again in a very different frame. But we actually achieved the 5-year goals in 3 years. And they were big at the time. And interestingly, though, that created a real plateau because it was kind of like, okay, well, we've done that. And we thought they were big goals for 5 years and we've just done it in 3. And it took us a while to actually think about how we reset. And interestingly, in the gap between that 3 and 5 years, we actually went into a systems phase and we went about systemizing everything. And we're very focused on our managerial systems, our operating systems, our financial systems for Newmark Constructions. However, then we got to a point where we'd done so much work in that space, the energy wasn't quite right for us. And so now we have the strategic plan is again much bigger, and yeah, it's very exciting, and we have that energy, and we're plugging away at it. And so let's jump into product architecture, and tell me what you mean by product.
Yep. Okay, so product is the art of productization. It's the art of packaging something up so it meets a need that sits inside the marketplace. Most often, when you innovate a new product, it's meeting a need that is not known. So it's an unmet need that is not known in the marketplace. So productization is a process you go through to educate the market that they have a need, and educate the market that you're the one that can provide that. An example of that I'll use a couple of corporate examples. For instance, Uber. So Uber came in and met an unmet need, which was the fact that there was underutilized infrastructure out there in the form of cars and people that wasn't being used. And they then came in and actually solved all the problems and all the heartache that people had with taxis, for instance. So they created a whole business that actually closed the issues that people had with the incumbent industry. There's other people out there that are in the service-based industries that then productize their services so that therefore they don't have to do time-based billing. So there's examples like, for instance, the Grow Project, our business, KPI. If you look at KPI, key person of influence, who knew that in order to grow a business faster, if you were the key person of influence in your industry sector, you would automatically grow your business faster, which is fact. But who knew that? And so when KPI developed that program, no one knew that they needed it. But when they saw what it was, they went, oh, okay, I need that. So productization is a process of articulating what the problem is, firstly, so that the individual can connect into it. The second thing is then actually putting a process in place to actually solve the problem. And it has a vision for what the solution looks like for the client. So you look at what the problem is, but then you've got to visualize what the solution looks like for them. And then you link that with the method that you're actually going to put in place to solve that problem. Now, productization can go in the form of how you supply suits to the market, through whether you do it via a store or you do it via a home delivery service. It's the same with food. Do you do it in the store or do you do a home delivery service? It's all about the art of what's the problem you're solving and then what's the solution and what's the method.
And then if you've got all that sorted out and you've got the most amazing product in the world and you don't understand why people want to buy it, what's missing?
If you don't understand why people want to buy it, you're not connected into the need. So sometimes what happens is businesses come up with an idea, or they might have an experience out in the marketplace that all of a sudden they see that people need to consume tea a different way, or you personally come up with an idea in the marketplace that can make money. Now, if you don't have some form of capability or some form of history that can articulate and solve that problem, then you're starting from scratch. and you've got a nice idea. So, I mean, I might have a nice idea that we should be traveling not in cars anymore, but we should be traveling in tubes, which is all magnetics that go along it, which is a fine idea and concept, but I'm not an engineer. I've got no idea around magnetics. So my idea might be good, but because I don't come from a background that I can actually solve it, then I'm just dreaming. And what happens in a lot of businesses, and that's an extreme one, but a lot of people come up with good ideas, but because they don't have capability or they don't know where to look for the capability, it stays in concept land.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add around product?
Yes. Product is about sticking to your knitting. Product, but the thing is, quite often you don't know what your knitting is. So sometimes productization is all about uncovering and being really clear on what your brilliance is. So if you take the example of Nike, how many shoes do you reckon Nike make? Rebecca, do you know the answer to this one?
But anyone can jump in the chat box if they're logged in with Twitter, and they can let us know, how many shoes do you think Nike actually makes?
Yeah. And I'll shortcut it. And the answer is 0. Yep. So someone's just come up and said most of it is outsourced. That's absolutely, all of it's outsourced. So what Nike realized is they're fantastic at marketing, and they're fantastic at brand. Their core capability is not manufacturing. So they outsource all of that. Whereas if you look at the core capability of Mars Corporation, so Mars Corporation do come from a long line and a rich family history of manufacturing. So their strategy is they actually outsource their marketing. They get a lot of really good marketing people to come in. But what they do is they go buy factories all around the world and fix all the factories up around the world. And that's how they grow their businesses. And then they have other people that come in and do the marketing over the top of it. So it's all about sticking to your knitting and knowing what you're really, really good at. Now, to know what you're really, really good at, sometimes you need to listen to feedback from people around you. Because what sometimes you think you're good at, it's actually not. You're better at something else. So what I always say to people is get some feedback, work out what actually comes easy to you, and the come easy is an important part. Is because we're so conditioned to the fact that life wasn't meant to be easy that we make things more difficult than what they really need to be. So what comes easy? What's your passion? What's your gift? What's your rock star skill that you want to bring to the world? And then look to see who you can partner with around the place to actually formulate a solution that's much bigger than yourself.
So Tim, give us a quick, you've talked about all the different ways you work with people, all the different scenarios, the different sizes. So tell us quickly, how do you work with clients?
Well, so for the smaller end side of things, from the 80K to the 1 mil plus, that one's mostly through key person of influence and other programs where people are coming together to learn in groups. And group learning at that point in time is completely appropriate, because what it does is it builds a community and it builds other connection points that you normally wouldn't get. So we work with platforms like the KPI, like Grow, and other product platforms to bring all of our material to that stage. Once a business gets into the process phase, they need a little bit more help. They need some more guidance, and they've now got multiple layers within their organization. So what we then do is we go in and we work on projects within those organizations to help them build the processes. Now, at this point, from 1.5 mil through to 12 mil, businesses don't need full-time resource building all those processes all the time. So what we do is we bring in partners that can get in there, build the process, transfer the skill, and then get out. So therefore, they're not employing a whole lot of people that they only need for a very, very short period of time. So we help them build projects, get those projects done, get the resource out so the resource doesn't get in the way of the growth. And we just help them project manage through to 12 mil. Then from 12 mil to 24 mil, they need a bit more of our attention, because now we're going to go and do a full-on change process when it comes to building new infrastructure. And so we put a whole project team at that point in there to make the shift, get the change happening, get them flipped from the process phase into the capability phase. We even help them acquire the new resources that they need. And then from there, what we do is we just make sure that all the capability is continually upskilled as they go on the journey from the 24 mil up to the 124.
Awesome. So people can find out more information about SureLaws at surelawsgroup.com. Of course, it's the SureLaws intellectual property, amazing frameworks that are incredibly clever. And part of the reason I think they're so clever is how simple they are and how applicable they are. And at times you kind of go, oh, I wish I'd thought about that. Or actually, that is the way I do something, but I wasn't able to teach it to others, are integrated into the Grow project. And that's how we came to have our partnership together. And then, of course, there's other programs like the Business of Brand School and the CRAM program and the Greenhouse and all of those other elements that you guys are working on. So people can keep an eye on those on surelawsgroup.com. I would love to understand why, Tim. Why are you with SureLaws Group, and why do you do what you do?
Okay, so the short answer is my father had a very, very successful engineering business. And he then merged into another organization to make one of the largest engineering companies in the Southern Hemisphere. And he was a very successful businessman, but he didn't necessarily get the full return on investment. He also didn't stick to his knitting on a couple of things. Well, whilst my father is hugely proud of his achievements, it wasn't an easy journey for him. And there was a lot of sacrifices that he had to make along the way. When I saw the SureLaws material, I saw that it was really powerful in the fact that it can actually not only get people to their outcomes faster, but it can also show them how to do it and keep their lifestyle. And keep the family life is just so important, and keeping things in perspective. So what I see is people go out and start business. They are the true engine of the economy. They are the ones that take the most risk. They are the ones that quite often are overlooked to the detriment of the country or the economy. If all entrepreneurs and if we all worked to what our collective strengths or our individual and collective strengths are, and we're all able to be released to have wonderful positive energy to go into our business, we'll change the world.
Thank you. I'm going to leave our conversation there today. You and I will no doubt be on the Business Fuel podcast, which kicks off in a couple of weeks, quite a few times. And part of that was how yours and my relationship started, in terms of, hey, Tim, do you want to come and chat about Business Fuel with me? And that's quite a long time ago now, and much has transpired. But you have an absolutely amazing wealth of knowledge to share, and I know that your clients, including ourselves, absolutely love working with you, and how it does change people's lives. The red, blue, black and green conversation and the contextual calendar you referred to in this session, we will hopefully be covering off with Adam Frampton tomorrow morning for those that are jumping on the call. And otherwise, we will make sure on the Grow project that we do put that exercise up, because it's a really simple one, and it really can change your life and get holidays and such back in your life, or babies or health or whatever it is that you want to focus on. And of course, you and I will be on stage together at the Grow Lab in a few weeks, and you will talk more then about the cycles of business. How do you jump? How do you move through those cycles? And what are the key elements that you need? Thank you very much for joining me today and chatting, giving us a bit more insight into the SureLaws side of things.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. So
for everybody that's joined us, we hope that you have joined the 7-Day Business Fuel Challenge, and that today has helped you have a greater understanding of the fuel that could be helping to grow your business as well as your life. Of course, you can, I keep forgetting to mention the freebies, which I shouldn't. We have some amazing prizes on the line. And if you are signed up, you'll get the freebies, you'll get the contextual calendar, printable that Tim's mentioned, and we will email all those out through. I can see there's a link down in the box to RebeccaNewmanOnline.com.au/events. Business Fuel Challenge. You can check out all the details there. And of course, you can follow us on social media. You'll find us on Instagram, active on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And to not miss a session of these blabs, please make sure that you log into Blab and hit the subscribe button. We will be back on air with you in a couple of hours. We have an amazing series of sessions today, and you can catch all those at RebeccaNewmanOnline.com.au. Keep an eye out for various events, and until then, ciao for now. Bye, Tim.
Bye-bye.